Yes, Council, the closure of NGOs in Uganda, over 10.
Now, is anyone surprised? Over 1,000 opposition supporters, some of whom are even leaders, candidates in this election, at member of parliament level, councillors, local leader levels, are in prison. Nominated candidates. They have sought for liberty through bail applications in courts. They have been denied. So if candidates have been imprisoned, over 1,000 members in the opposition, supporters, have been picked up from several campaign areas. And they are in Luzira, save for a few that were bailed out. But all notables have not obtained bail. So we've seen a clampdown on political activity of political parties, clampdown on members, supporters of political parties. We've seen a clampdown on some institutions relating to elections. We've seen nominated candidates unlawfully denominated. So I will not be surprised. Actually, I am not surprised that I'm seeing civil society organizations at the tail end being closed down. Actually, it was long overdue because in the past, civil society organizations used to be closed down at the earlier stages in the election. We've seen draconian laws being put in place to clamp down on civil society organizations. We've seen bodies being created as umbrella bodies of these organizations to regulate, which regulation was determined by the way you think, the way you activate. No wonder in this election we've not seen any actions, activities, or statements by civil society organizations. In the past, civil society organizations were covering the gaps, the voids that the Electoral Commission could not handle in civic education. We have times where people are going to use machines which they do not know how they operate, where people do not know what is going on because those gaps used to be covered by civil society funding. But upon the clampdown, that is why we've not seen such activities. So these organizations had already been silenced. They had been intimidated into submission. What was left of them is the structure and the capacity, probably, to mobilize from their offices. So this regime is so scared that even a quiet or silenced organization can be shut down. I believe that having clamped down on these organizations and having assured that the opposition runs an election without logistics, having closed all the taps, all the financial sources, including one provided for by law, that is through iPod. They have imprisoned so many people on charges trumped up, money laundering, terrorism, simply because they are associating logistically with the opposition. If they can imprison priests, what makes you think they cannot lock down a civil society organization? So this is not surprising that it has happened, but that it has happened at this level. The government in the regime is so threatened that whatever speculation they have over what could happen, they have to come in. For example, they believe these organizations have the infrastructure that can substitute the shutting down of all channels of communication, social media, and any communication channels, and even mobile money services that are being closed this evening. So with a view to closing all gaps that would facilitate a proper election by the opposition, facilitating agents, communicating with people across board. This is the reason I believe some of these organizations that have a bit of capacity so to do are being clamped down and closed down to leave no room whatsoever for free communication, and even to close down what was left of that eye that could see beyond what an ordinary Ugandan would see, of that capacity to know the intention and machinations of the state machinery in as far as tampering with the election process is concerned. So it's just about incapacitating any means that can protect the sanctity of this election. For an election which is properly managed and handled can hardly be won by a 40-year rule as against someone who is barely 40 years. We find ourselves with one candidate having ruled for 40 years with an opponent who is more of a grandchild. That what you've done in 40 years cannot speak for you. Where the intellect stops, where the reasoning stops, always we see physical muscling. We see arms being brought at the fore because they have no reason whatsoever to believe that if the people's voice, if the people power rises up, while properly managed, properly organized, properly networked, it will subdue the arms that we are seeing. This is a war between, a fight between the people and the institution of government. It's a war because we've seen war machinery on the streets where there is no activity whatsoever. It is a war between the machinery of the regime with the voters. And I will tell you, like it has happened in other countries, the regime knows what happened in Khartoum, what happened in Libya, what happened in Tunisia, what happened in Kenya, can easily happen if they do not suppress any channels, any room that would facilitate the people in defending themselves. But we are not threatened. We believe, like we've said, our clarion call remains. The campaigns are now closing. Go and vote in big numbers. It is only those numbers, well protected, that can really overturn this situation. Nothing, not the courts of law. Because all institutions of government have been overtaken by the regime. They are not independent. Fight for your independence through the ballot. Through this ballot revolution, you can reclaim your rights, you can reclaim your country, you can reclaim your democracy.
Council, where does it leave Salah Bidete and others, because he is also in jail and his organization was the first on the list to be closed? And is there a room that they can use to go to court to petition the government about the closure?
Ordinarily, it is unheard of. Or it is unheard of that you can instruct your RSB to deregister an organization without the due process, that you can unlicense an organization without a hearing. But that only acts, I would think, in that direction if things were normal. You cannot act normally in an abnormal situation. When you act normal, you'll go through the processes and the result you'll get long after the election has been concluded. And the aggressor would have achieved their aims. So that is not the direction I believe would work. It is politics at play. It should be politics to reclaim its space, the true politics. How does it reclaim its space? Is by the people. Sarah was standing for something. It is a matter of principle. Let people, like-minded people, fight the struggle where Sarah is not. Not to cry for Sarah. Sarah would feel better that where she is not, other people have stood up in her space to reclaim what she's fighting for. For it is a cause which is beyond those in prison. And that cause should now be owned by Ugandans, because it is their rights that are being tramped up. It is their mouth that is being closed. It is their freedom that is being trampled upon. It is the ball is in their court as Ugandans. And you will not find any other day so suitable like this date, where the country is on holiday for purposes of you gathering, where there is no other business, but every corner of this country, people are rallying up. They're getting that chance to make their voice heard. Don't stop at casting your vote. Proceed to protect your vote. If that vote is being tampered with, protect it further. The Constitution gives you that power and mandate to overpower anyone who is trampling against the Constitution, who is abrogating that Constitution. Fight for your Constitution through the ballot revolution. Fight through a protest vote. It's only then that dictators are won, especially these who came through what so-called liberation forces or wars. All across, I've not seen a person who went through armed rebellion, leaving power just by people, people voting. It has all been through people having an extra energy, because democracy is not so casually obtained when faced with a dictator.